stage here. You lead those who lead you and your peers. Give a warm welcome for Drew. Thank you.
So we are going to talk about how to communicate with those you lead, those who lead you, and your peers. And this is actually a chapter in my book that you can get absolutely free. The QR code is in the back, or you can go to the executiveleadershandbook.com and get the book for free. But I want you to have this information, whether you're in a leadership role or not. The book's broken up into 3 sections: communication and connection, organizational leadership, and then mindset. So 2 of those are just for every human on the planet, right? Getting better at communicating and then having the proper mindset for success. So grab that book, whether free or if you like a physical copy, I have those in the back. But let me read a quote to start out. Communication works for those who work at it. Ain't that the truth? It only works if you work at it, if you put effort into it. And I'm going to share with you some filters today. These are just some filters that I came up with. I didn't read them anywhere. I did get them from some mentors or some interactions that I picked up on and what worked. But I'm just trying to observe successful people around my life and model behavior after them, and that's worked for me. So anyhow, I picked up these filters, and these are what I'm calling communication filters. They're a filter that you filter the information that you're saying through, just like a water filter, right? How many of you do any water purification or filtration? Anybody? Okay, yeah, we got some folks that do that. So you still got to put good drinkable water in the system before it gets purified, right? Like you're not taking sewage water and running it through and saying, oh, here you go, it's good to go. Well, the same thing is true with these filters that I'm going to share with you today. You can't take crappy information, right, said in a harsh or rude way and say, well, I used Drew's filter, why didn't that work? No, you have to think through what you're going to say and then put these filters to work for the information. All right, let me share this, a couple more things. This goes on top of the DISC training that I've spoken about in a couple other settings. If you want some free training around DISC, you can go to my YouTube channel. Drew T. Jackson is my YouTube channel. If you go on there, I have a training called, I think it's called Human Behavior. Yeah, Human Behavior Style Training. And you can get that and watch the entire training absolutely free. But in addition to that, I want you to use these filters. But let me share something else with you. Relationships can get you there, but results will keep you there. So someone might open a door for you via a relationship, but it's what you do with that. This is a principle of life, but it's also with communication. What you do with it is what's going to determine if you're able to stay in that opportunity and maintain that opportunity. People can lend you their influence, but you have to take advantage of it through your efforts if you want to stay in that spot. And a lot of that goes down to your communication. How well you communicate, how well you interact with others. Do you play well with others in the workplace? Are you clear? And how do I define communication? I'll say it this way. Communication is the ability to say what you want to say and people get it. Sometimes we say, hey, I'm saying exactly what I want to say, but if other people don't understand what you're trying to say or what they hear you saying is something totally different, then you might not be as good of a communicator as you think you are. So a good communicator can say what they want to say and other people get it. All right, so title filters. Let me jump into it. Now these filters are based on the 3 types of people that we interact with. In the title I talk about that, right? Those who lead you. How many of us have people who lead us? Right? My wife was my trainer when we first got married. She trained me at a restaurant, and some things never change, right? She's still training me today. So we all have leaders in our life. How many of us have followers? How many of us are in a leadership position, whether in your organization or maybe at home, right? You have a family, you have kids, you're leading them. And then we all have peers, right? If you're unclear on if someone leads you or if you lead them and you don't know the answer to that, they're probably your peer. They're probably just a peer within the organization or in life. And so I'm going to give you filters to filter your communication based upon the type of person that you're talking to. All right, so we clear on that? Yeah? Okay. So the first filter is a team member filter. This is employee. I like calling them team member. I think it communicates value. But the filter that we're going to use, I got to get my clicker. The filter that we want to use with the team member is value. We constantly want to communicate to our team members that we value them. Just like you would with a child, right? Your child in your home, if you want to do well, I like to say, I was talking to somebody the other day. My oldest is 17. Teenagers, right? It's a little different than little kids. Little kids I had down. I got that, it's pretty easy. But the teenager, it's a little different. But one of my goals with my kids is that I want them to want to be around me when they don't have to, right? And so as they grow up and they get older, I want them to desire to come around, be around my house, celebrate birthdays, do all that kind of stuff when they don't have to. Well, part of that is to communicate value, right? I value them. It's a healthy relationship and a parent relationship. Well, the same thing is true with a boss-follower relationship. Employee-employer relationship is you want to communicate value to those team members. You got an apprentice on your team. You want to communicate that you value them. Okay, so what does that mean? Let me flesh it out for you. A survey of 2,100 individuals, when asked the top 3 qualities they're looking for in a leader, the 3 responses were: number 1, communication; number 2, interpersonal skills; and number 3, values and ethics. What do they want? They want those communication skills and the interpersonal skills. They want you to look them in the eyes, let them know that what they're saying matters, that they have value, that what they're saying means something. When I lead trainings with mid-level management and frontline staff, it never fails that they want to be seen as valuable in the organization. Every single time. If I don't have the owner or the boss in the room, that's what they want. I'd like some time with them. I'd like for them to look at me and consider what I'm saying. They don't have to go with everything that I say, but consider what I'm saying. So what do we do this? How do you value them? Number 1, you can value their contribution to the team, value their willingness to follow, value them as a person, and value them as a teammate. So how do you do this? Simple nonverbal communication way of doing this is just look people in the eyes, right? If you're looking someone in the eyes, you're communicating to them that I'm listening to you, right? I care about what you're saying. I've had it before where I've worked for folks that have asked me a question. Maybe we're in a more of a public setting. They've asked me a specific question. I begin to share the answer, and their eyes are darting all over the place, and then they see someone else that they want to ask a question or talk to or whatever, and they go over to them while I'm giving the answer. Do you think that communicates that they want to listen to me? Absolutely not, right? So a simple way to do that is just engage. If you ask someone a question, engage with them. Show them that you value them. Tell them that you value them. We were talking about different motivations with Kyle, one of the Linux managers, and he has this great training on motivations, but some of us, and more than others, all of us love to be appreciated, but some of us more than others really love that positive reinforcement of what we're doing. When I worked at Costco wholesale, the management specifically said, and I've seen this model multiple times, but the management said, if you're doing okay, we won't say anything to you. But if you mess up, we'll let you know. Anybody ever heard that before? That sucks, right? Like, why don't you tell me when I'm doing good, and you can tell me when I'm doing bad, but please let me know when things are going well, right? Let me know, hey, this is the kind of activity that I want. Hey, what you did today, how you interacted with that customer, how you delivered that service, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Great job, right? And we want to appreciate them publicly, and then we can critique and correct privately. We always want to do that. Number 3, be interested in them as a person. So ask, hey, what's going on in your life? How you doing? That's how you value a person in your organization. Number 4, invest in them personally. Maybe you brought a person or two to this event. That's an investment in them. That's wonderful. That's fantastic. That's communicating, hey, I value you and I want to invest in you and your future in this industry. A study done by Salesforce of over 1,500 businesses found that among other findings, they discovered that when an employee feels heard, that person is 4.6 times more likely to feel empowered and to perform at the best of their abilities. Any leaders in here, any business owners, if you want your people to perform at the best of their abilities, value them. Communicate that you value them. Number 6, acknowledge them publicly. I said that already. And number 7, help them find their fit or discover their fit in the organization. A lot of that's going on here in this place, but there's so many different opportunities within this industry, right? You could go the sales route. You could be a technician. You could go into leadership. There are many opportunities. Help your team members discover and define what their strengths are and where their opportunities are. That will communicate value to them. All right, next. The leader filter. So when you're talking to those who lead you, now let me just preface it with this. I'm a results-oriented person. So I'll do all kinds of things to accomplish the goal that I'm trying to accomplish instead of letting my pride get in the way and not doing something. I preface it with that. So what's the filter for when you're talking to those who lead you? So your boss, the owner of your company, when you're speaking with them, what's the filter you should use? Honor. We want to use the honor filter with these folks. There's a funny study that was done, and it was done with these teachers. These teachers were told that they were going to be given very high performing students, and they were going to be given these high performing students because they were among their peers the highest performing teachers. And what they found at the end of the year was that the teachers did a fantastic job at teaching and the students actually did better. The reality was they were randomly chosen. They weren't better than their peers. They weren't any better, and the students actually weren't better students. They were just randomly chosen students. What was the difference? They believed they were better. They were honored and told, you are highly esteemed, right? You're the best of the best. And they performed better. So at the very least, if you want your boss to do a little better, honor them, right? Let them outperform their own self because they have a healthy self-image. I think it was Zig Ziglar that said, you will never outperform your own self-image. It doesn't happen. So honor your leaders and they'll do better. But how do you do this? Honor their position in the organization. It's not easy being a leader. It's not easy owning your own business. And so honor the sacrifices that have to be made. Maybe they answer phone calls at a certain time. Maybe they did other things prior to where they're at right now. Honor those sacrifices that they made prior. Honor their position in the organization. Honor their sacrifices and their present role. Honor them as a person and honor them as a teammate. So how do you communicate honor? Number 1, commit to the vision. Commit to the vision or the goal of your organization. Wherever your leader is driving towards, what's important to them, make important to you. So many times we can say, well, I think that's dumb, or I think that's stupid, or I want to do it this way, or that's not my preference, or man, I don't want to learn that new thing that they're trying to push right now. But when we have a different vision, then what we cause in our organization is division, right? Die meaning two different visions. And when you have two different visions, you're not able to accomplish the goal. What does that mean in an organization if you have two different visions, or 3 or 4 or 5? Everybody's just kind of doing their own thing. There's not as much opportunity for everybody, right? Because we're not going in one direction together. We're not moving forward together as one unit. It's funny, we're in a big tent. I had it explained to me this way. When you have multiple visions in an organization, it's like going to the circus. It's like the big tent going on. You got the guy riding the motorcycle over here. you got somebody juggling, you got the elephant over there, and there's all these distractions taking away your attention, as opposed to having a cruise ship or a battleship where there's multiple teams on that ship, but they're going one direction. They're going together in one direction. So we want to get behind the vision of our leaders. And let me say this, if you can't get behind the vision of where they're going, then do the right thing and remove yourself from the organization. Don't cause division in that organization. Find another place where you can get behind what they're doing. If you, for whatever reason, can't get behind what it is that they're doing. But let me ask you this, if you're making that decision to move on, is the vision or what your leader is doing, is it illegal, immoral, or unethical? If not, then it's just a matter of preference, right? And so you need to ask yourself why you aren't getting behind the vision if that's a hang up for you. Number 2, tell your leaders that you honor them, that you honor their achievements. Hey, that's really awesome that you've been in the industry for 35 years. I think that's something I aspire to, right? Honor them in that way. Number 3, support them publicly and privately. That means when someone comes to you, I know nobody ever talks behind the boss's back, right? That never happens in any organization here. But in some organizations that I've worked with before, that happens. What do you need to do? You need to speak positively, or what your personal experience is in a positive light, and direct that person. If they have a problem, I tell my clients this all the time. If you have a conflict with someone in the organization, whether it's the leader or somebody else, you have 3 options, 3 healthy options. Obviously, you can go talk about them behind their back. You can manipulate the situation, do all that kind of stuff. But there's 3 healthy ways to handle that personal conflict within an organization. Number 1, you can address it. Number 2, you can get over it. Or number 3, you can leave the organization if you don't want to do the first 2. But that's the only healthy way to deal with conflict within the organization. If someone's talking trash about the owner or the leader in the organization, then you need to direct them to do one of those 3 things. And then number 4, ask your boss for help from time to time. Sometimes people avoid this because they think, I don't want to appear as if I don't know what I'm talking about. But there's actually research done by Harvard Business Review, and they found that when people ask others for help, the person that they ask for help actually perceives that the person asking is more competent. Now that's kind of weird, right? It sounds counterintuitive, but think about it from an ego perspective. What's your name, my friend, in the front row here? What's your name? Candy? Okay. So if I ask Candy for help in a certain area, Candy goes, well, Drew's pretty smart. Obviously, because he's asking me for help in my area of expertise, right? That's how it comes across. We get insecure and we think, oh, I don't want to ask for help. But in reality, Candy goes, ego, right? Of course they're asking me because I know what I'm talking about. And so don't be afraid to ask for help, ask for guidance, ask for mentorship from time to time. You don't want to overuse this, but ask for help from time to time. All right, next is the peer filter. Well, let me say this. There's a great quote from Harry Truman. He said this, he said, it's incredible what you can accomplish if you do not care who gets the credit. And that's really what it's about when asking for help or with honoring your leadership. It's about getting the result that you're looking for. And if you can set your ego aside, all these things are so easy, and I'm telling you, you will advance in your career. In every organization that I've been in, I've put these things into practice, and I've been able to advance myself in the organization by using these filters to communicate. So the final one, the peer filter, is respect, right? And the question I ask with this is, do you have any self-respect? Because what is a peer? A peer by definition is you're equal, right? You're equal in the organization. And if they're your peer, but you don't respect them, and I know this can be challenging from time to time. I've got family members that have been doing the same job for 40 years and moved up in all kinds of leadership roles, but then at this stage in their career decided that they want to be an individual contributor for the most part, right? They don't want to lead the office. They've been asked to do it. They said, no, thank you. I'm kind of in the last few years of my career, I'm going to audit not to. Well, what does that mean? That means the guy that has 40 years experience is a peer to the person that has 2 years experience, right? Because they chose that. And that can be frustrating from time to time. That can be upsetting if you're struggling with interacting with your peers, but you got to recognize at the end of the day, they're in the same role as you. And so you need to treat them with respect. Respect because they have the same qualification, they have the same qualifications or experience that got them to where they're at, right? Whatever that may be. And that might be a relationship. Sometimes there's family ties that open those up, but they're there, right? So respect is what's going to move you ahead. Number 2, how do you do this? Respect their opinions as your counterpart. Listen to them. Don't dismiss them. Listen to them as your counterpart. Hear them out. Number 3, respect them as a person. Number 4, respect them as a teammate. So how do you communicate respect? Number 1, and get your questions ready. We're going to start questions in just a minute here. I think, Pat, you got a microphone, right? Okay, it'll be just another couple minutes. So how do I communicate respect? Number 1, listen to them when they're sharing their ideas in a meeting. Listen to what they have to say. Don't be messing around on your phone, but listen to them. Show them you respect them. Number 2, put yourself in your peers' shoes and work to understand where they're coming from, what their perspective is. Number 3, congratulate them on their successes and acknowledge their accomplishments. This can be challenging from time to time if their success at times feels like it's at your detriment. But once again, if you want to communicate well, you want to play nice, you want to advance in your organization, you can do these things. Number 4, don't over-criticize them. I had a friend, good friend, still a friend, fortunately. We were in the same role in an organization, both in leadership roles. And he asked me to critique him in his job. And I was young, and I just gave it to him like I'd give anybody else, and it didn't go over well. And I'm like, what in the world? He asked me, right, to critique his work. But the reality is, at the end of the day, that's not my function in our relationship. And so what I would encourage you to do is, if your peers ask you to critique them, go easy on them, right? Maybe give one thing, but then give some positive things, and then challenge them to go to whoever they look to as a leader and say, hey, maybe go to them and see if they have anything for you. But just temper that critique because it doesn't tend to go over well. So a couple questions to ask yourself when it comes to communication is, number 1, how can I filter my communication through value with those I lead? Number 2, how can I filter my communication through honor with those who lead me? And number 3, how can I filter my communication through respect with my peers? All right, so those are some communication filters. So hit me. Who's got some questions? It can be on the subject of communication, or it can be something else. And just wave your hand when you got a question. Right back over here. Pat's going to come to you.
All right, there it is. Do you have any suggestions for communicating with people that just kind of shut down when you communicate, specifically like the millennials, where you are trying to softly critique them, but any critique is the end of the world for them?
Yeah. Dude, so I had an employee one time that 25, 26 years old, college graduate, so he'd lived some life, lived away from his parents, all that kind of stuff. I told him that he was missing the mark. Started crying. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I realized that I was the first person that had ever critiqued his job performance in his life. Because he was super smart, right? Always was able to achieve without criticism. So here's just what I advise and what I would talk about is I always like to do the positive, negative, positive. Maybe even taught that before, but come in with something that they do well. And hey, I love your attitude when you're here at work. You always show up on time, whatever the case is, right? Something simple like that. And then, hey, I do need to challenge you with one item though, and it's X. It's this thing. Maybe it is a time thing. Hey, you're great when you're here. You're awesome with the guests or with the customers, but you haven't been getting here on time. And so I need you to focus on getting here on time. And then following up with that, give another positive, but I think what I like to do is a forward-looking positive. So with that, it's like, maybe with this individual, you can say, with your attitude, if you can get this coming in on time thing down, I think you could be employee of the month, moving forward or whatever, right? I could see you becoming one of our top technicians or whatever the case is, kind of fill that in and do that positive, negative, positive. Another way that I've done in the past because when you have an employee that you want to keep and you want them to keep moving forward, obviously if you're firing them, don't do positive, negative, positive, right? It's like just clear to the point. But someone that you want to continue to work with, you can do the expectation. So I like to do this, I like to say, hey Jim, man, this is really what I see your potential as, but right now, this is where you're performing. This is your job performance. And I know you can get up here. I want to help you get up here. These are some things that I think could help you get up there, but I really need you to be up here. Do you think you can do that? Yes, I can do that, right? So it's letting them know that you value them, you see potential in them, but job performance-wise, this is where they're at, and we have to meet this standard. Is that helpful? Okay, cool. Great question, thank you. Awesome, other questions? Communication, leadership, anything I talked about today or something off subject? We got time, so you can jump in and ask a question. Yes, sir. Man, running Pat is on top of it.
Can you please give me an example of how you communicate through honor with those who lead me?
How would you communicate honor with those who lead you? Yeah. So that number one is get behind the vision of the organization. So whatever is important, and whether it's a vision statement or a stated goal, you might not have that, right? But you do probably know what's important to them and make what is important to your boss important to you. So if, I see your shirt is very nicely pressed, it's tucked in, it looks great, right? If that's a value to your boss specifically, then continue to do that, right? Because that's gonna communicate to them, you're behind, you're supporting what they want the organization to do, and you're modeling it. So getting behind what they do, sharing with them, I'm on your team, right? I'm willing to go with you, and there's a fine line between, I know a lot of people might hear that and they say, that's kissing butt, right? There's a fine line there. You're not doing it just to kind of win over some preference, but if it's genuine from the heart, right? It's like, hey, I love the organization, I love where we're going, and I'm with you. I know as a leader, when I've had people in my organization like that, man, it's so much easier to lead because you know that you have the support of those people, those individuals who express that. Like I said, you can honor them by asking them questions, viewing them as a mentor, recognizing they have value that they can bring to you, and hey, can you share with me what you would do in this situation? Once again, you don't want to do that every day, but you do it from time to time to communicate, I value what you're sharing. You bet. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, you don't want to come across that way. Well, and that's why, here's the other thing. Let's just break it down. So people who kiss butt and get accused of that, they're not winning with their peers either, right? So they don't respect their peers. They see them as competition. They're trying to push them down and kiss butt. That's what that interaction is. If you can respect your peers and work on your relationship with them, honor those that lead you. Maybe you're not in a leadership role right now. Then you're there. But at the same time, leadership is influence, so kind of go a different level other than actual organizational chart, leadership job title. If you have influence within an organization, that's leadership, right? So the same thing is true. If I have someone that I know in the organization, we might be peers. We might be on the same level as far as in the organization. Let's say we're both technicians, but maybe I'm older, or I've been married longer than this person, or I have more life experience than a person, whatever the case is, and they look to me kind of as a mentor. I want to be gentle and understand that dynamic and use that value piece as well. Respect them, but also when they want to work in that dynamic, then communicate value with them. And so, yeah, if you get all three of them working, it works. If you try to do one or the other, you can get out of whack.
The QR code that I couldn't get earlier.
The QR code from earlier.
Yes.
That's on a different slide presentation. The one for my book or the one for strategic planning? Okay. I don't know, Marty, team in the back. I don't have access to it right now. Maybe someone else can show you a picture. All right, yeah, they're busy in the back, so I think we'll get that. Did anybody else need that strategic planning one? No? Okay. If he's got it, then we're good. Great. Perfect. Other questions? Who needs an energy drink about right now? Right? Okay, we got another question. Yeah. Guys, go back and forth, and Pat's going to get his steps in for the day.
Thank you. So, I guess if you have like a communication breakdown, say you're having a meeting, conversation, whatever it is with somebody, and things go really bad, it gets really heated, do you have any tips or strategies for trying to come back to that and reapproach the subject?
Yeah, okay, I can work in like generalities with that. With coaching, the cool thing about coaching is we can talk about a specific thing and like break down where things went wrong. But in general, taking a time out is fine, and saying, hey, let's come back to this with X, Y, Z. So many things would depend on, is this the first time you've had this conversation? Is this the 10th time you've had the conversation? And I think setting the stage for, so if this has happened multiple times, then you set the stage on the front end to say, here's what we need to do in this conversation. We're both adults here, and we need to, we're not going to yell. We're not going to, start cussing at each other. We're going to keep it kosher and be professional with one another in this conversation. I'm going to share some challenging things with you. I need you to hear them, and we need to figure out how we're going to move forward from this. And that's kind of set the tone for the conversation. Now I'm once again speaking in terms of like, maybe you're a direct oversight to them, you lead them, and you're having that conversation. If you're a peer, that conversation is going to go a little bit different, and you're going to say, hey, I'd like to have this conversation. This is how I'd like it to go, right? Because you can't really mandate that. But setting the tone on the front end, I think, is a big part of it. And maybe, depending on the person, letting them know a little bit in advance, hey, I need to have this meeting with you tomorrow. It's probably not going to be your favorite meeting, but we need to have it, and I think it's going to be good for us. We're going to move forward. Something like that.
I have a question for you,
Yes,
Drew.
sir.
What would be your advice for a peer that you would work with that is very black and white in their communication and has a tendency to lack empathy?
Okay. So you send them to one of my trainings is what you do. I mean, at the end of the day, right, we've got to get down to motivation. So whenever I'm working with someone, I'm always looking for what's that motivation piece. If you've got a person that's been in the industry for a number of years, they're kind of topped out where they want to be. They're not trying to get anything else. They're just trying to ride out their time. There's no real lever of motivation that you can pull. If you're a peer to them, you're kind of limited on your ability to do anything about that, because you can't use like motivational influence and kind of pull a lever that would motivate. Hey man, I heard you say you want to move into management. I think maybe if you try to empathize a little more, right? I try to find those things, but if that doesn't exist, then you're stalled out because they don't have a motivation. And then it's just a matter of if your leadership is okay with that. And that's up to them and kind of how the leadership wants to handle it. So, yeah. Once again, if we were in a specific situation, we might be able to kind of strategize through it.
Oh, we are.
If we were one that we could talk about in more detail, then yeah, then absolutely, we can talk about it and kind of game plan, or you can share some things and that might trigger something, a technique you could use. But in general, yeah, I try to find the lever. What is the lever of motivation? Which once again goes back to, I talked about finding out what the interests of your team members are, your employees are. Same thing with your peers. Find out what's important to them. And now that's a lever that you go back to try to say, hey man, you said this is what you're interested in. Do you think maybe that would help? But the relationship is if you're gonna have any success, it's gonna be because you have a relationship, not because you come down on them and tell them, in the peer relationship, hey, this is what you should do, you suck. Well, it's not your job to tell them they suck, So,
Appreciate that.
yeah, you bet. Yes, sir.
What's something that, that's a little loud. What's something that motivated you to get to where you are today?
So I've got a purpose statement, and it's my dream is to help you live yours. And so that's something that drives me. I feel like I was put on planet Earth to help people fulfill their dream or their purpose. So the vision, strategic planning, all that kind of stuff is really from that deep place of motivation that I want to activate people in doing that. So that's my internal motivation for doing it. And what wakes me up in the morning is to do that. So with leadership, it's many times people trying to achieve a certain goal in their organization. And so that motivates me to write a book, because I can get the information out to more people, to come here, I can talk to more people. But it comes down to, I think when you get to the motivation piece and what drives you, it's like the Venn diagram thing where they overlap. So you've got, what are my strengths? What am I good at? What experiences do I have? And then the third one, what do I like doing? And kind of where those all overlap, there's going to be a few vocations, right? If my strength is speaking and leadership, and I believe my purpose is, my dream is to help others live theirs, there's a lot of different things I could do, right? I could run many different kinds of businesses and have that same impact, or I could be a public speaker, or I could work for an organization where I speak all the time. So it's just figuring out what your strengths are and then where those items converge. And I think that, for me, is hugely motivational. I have actually on my website, it's a free training, drewtjackson.com, no QR code for that one, but it's under coaching and it's free. It's called Strategic Career Coaching Program. You don't even have to put an email address in there, but there's a video and like a 15-page printout that'll ask you questions that you can go through to really figure out where those things converge for you. And you're going to excel in the area that aligns with your strengths and what you believe is important. So I would do that. Awesome.
What sort of made you get into this field of work? Like
Speaking?
Yeah, no. Yes, actually, not. Well, are you just speaking for HVAC, or are you just speaking just in
Yeah,
general?
so I'm not industry specific.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had some experience at a very young age in plumbing, pipe fitting. One of the companies I worked for had some HVAC, but that's the extent of my experience in that. So I do business coaching, leadership training, executive coaching. So that's what I do. I've been on stages speaking. You know, you kind of look back and you can see themes throughout your life. And from the age of 5, I was doing plays at church, you know, and I had lead roles, and I'm doing all these parts, and I'm standing up here talking. In high school, I was choir president. We had state-winning, championship-winning choir. And I like to say, if choir sucked at your school, or if choir wasn't cool at your school, it's because you guys sucked, okay? So choir was cool at my school because we were really good. But on stages, right? emceeing stuff. And then before I had my own business, I was actually a pastor. So standing, speaking every single week. And then I also did leadership development, right? Because I'm training volunteers all the time. And but I had this opportunity with business folks. Business folks really liked me. And I had a church that I started. Business folks really liked me, but they didn't want to come to my church. They're like, I don't really like church. And I said, okay. So I just saw this opportunity that, hey, I can do my thing, right? Help people live their dream on a greater scale if I remove myself from just the confines of being in a church to do that. So that's the long story long of how I got to where I'm at. Awesome. Any other questions? Looks like the other groups are ending. So if you have questions, I'll take the mic off and I'll go back to the books in the back. The book's free. You can get the QR code in the back, or if you want a physical copy. But I'll be back there if you have questions, and I'd love to speak with you. Thank you so much for allowing me to have this time with you today.